Hey guys, it's Mr. Mini Painter, and today we are painting everyone's favorite wizard, Gandalf. What I did here is prime the model in a black undertone, and I'm going to try and achieve a bluish taint. Of course, he is Gandalf the Grey, but to paint him just grey would be a bit boring, I think. And I like some blue tones in his suit and of course in his hat. And I'm gonna try and use some different ones. To start off with is the skin, and for that I'm using Bugman's Glow as a base coat. And of course we're going to be highlighting that with some Cadian flesh tone, and you can build it up in layers if you want, or go over it at once if you're quick, if you want to finish early. I covered the skin with a light wash of Ripening Flesh shade. He's wearing some kind of fingerless gloves, so it's just the fingertips that are coming out. Next, a highlight with Kislev Flesh, and for this we're painting the cheekbones, the nose, the tip of the fingers, the knuckles, stuff like that. The most difficult part is always the eyes. Palette Witch Flesh for the whites, and a tiny dot of Abaddon Black for the pupils. This is always the most challenging part of any miniature, because it's the tiniest detail, but it really finishes the model, I think. I'm using Rock Hard Flesh for the gloves, the part of cloth that is coming out of his sleeve. Then the inner robe is going to be painted with Thunderhawk Blue. A nice blue tone to start off with. And we're going to be painting the outer robes with Dark Reaper. That's a lot of area to cover, and I want to have some different blue and gray tones for this model. Then some Ashen Gray to gray out those top areas. So I'm using it as a highlight color, which might seem a bit strange because you have a blue shade, but I think it's going to turn out very, very nice. And of course he is Gandalf the Grey, so we're not going to be able to paint this mini without using any grays, right? Make sure to keep those folds and those lower parts nice and dark blue. And to highlight the Ashen Gray, we're going to add some Dawnstone. And we're going to focus on the edges, the very trims of the coat, the top parts where the light would be showing. And this way you get a nice variation of 3 different colors. And I really like how this blue is shining through. Gives it a nice detail, I think. If you want to go full gray, you can use, for example, Mechanica Standard Gray as a base tone. Now I'm using Pure Dawnstone as an extreme highlight, but just on those very edges, the bottom. To give it a nice tiny details. The edge of the sleeve. Just a few parts for an extreme highlight. After that, I'm mixing Dawnstone with some Celestra Gray to go even further than that. The Celestra Gray is bringing back a little bit of blue, and maybe it's not necessary. I like this detail. Usually when I paint, I try and think of a paint scheme before I start, and in the end I usually change 1 or 2 colors or add something as I go. Now the most recognizable part for him is of course the hat, for which I used Night Lord's Blue as a base tone, nice dark blue. And we're going to try and bring those 2 colors, the coat and the hat, a bit together. But first I'm doing the inner robes with Fenrisian Gray mixed with some Thunderhawk Blue to to add some nice highlights. Then Thunderhawk Blue with some Celestra Grey on the hat. Again, the Celestra Grey, and this way we're bringing the colors a bit closer to the rest of his clothing. I'm leaving some parts of the darker blue shining through so you can thin it down. For now I'm using Dark Reaper on the scarf. And as you can see, they are all different blue tones, but they kind of blend in together. But it makes every item unique. I'm using Thunderhawk Blue in a pure form on the edges of the scarf. I highlight those details. And finally a Fenrisian Grey for the tips, the ends, the sides of the scarf as a final highlight. Take your time with this because there are some tiny details, the hair on the bottom, etc. Just make it the way you want it. Now comes the beard, and for that I'm using a base tone of Baneblade Brown. He has a grey beard, but it's a bit of a dirty beard, right? So I wanted to add some brown tones as a base color. Now we're going to be highlighting that with some rock art flesh. Also not really a grey, but it works. After this, I'm shading it with some Apothecary White. You can use Null Oil if you want, but Null Oil tends to be too black or you have to thin it down quite a lot. And the Apothecary White, I also put a bit on his robes. It has a nice grey tone. Now some Rhinox Hide and Abaddon Black for the staff. I mixed it about 50-50, I think. You can go as dark as you want. And also the belt. He has two belts on his waist. So I'm painting the top one here, highlighting the staff with some Gorthor Brown. There's a lot of detail on it, so make sure to get that. The other belt I'm painting with Night Lord's Blue. Again, a nice blue tone. And it's the belt leading to his sword scabbard. Agrax Earthshade on the gloves. Just a tiny bit, there's not much detail on there, but give it a nice color variation. Then Lead Belcher for the metal parts of the sword, which is the tip of the hilt. Yeah, you can see it's not really well visible from this angle, but well, you know what to paint, right? And then there is some tiny metal detail here, a clasp or a buckle. Paint that with some Lead Belcher as well. Then I used some Fenrisian Grey to paint some details on the handle of the sword. How do you call that? Is that a hilt? I'm not really sure. Some Null Oil on the metal parts. And then highlight it with some Runefang Steel. Focus on the tips, the sharp edges. I used some Corvus Black on his shoes. They're very, very little visible, but a tiny detail. And then highlight that with some Mechanicus Standard Grey. And you should get something like this. There he is, our finished wizard, Gandalf the Grey, Thank you so much for watching again. I hope this tutorial was helpful in any way. If you like these kind of videos, please consider subscribing to my channel. I'd love it if you do so. And I hope to see you in one of my next videos. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.